Look at this nappy-headed princess thinking she can fly first class. The male security guard's scissors sliced through Amaris Rosas's natural hair as passengers circled. Phones raised, some cheering. "Cut it all off!" someone yelled. Bradley, the supervisor, laughed while Caesar, the airline manager, filmed. Entitled, "Ghetto Queen Getting Humbled." Amaris sat still, tears streaking her face, her voice calm. "Continue, please." Her fingers moved once. 2 taps, a swipe, a code sent. Code 5, activated. LAX Terminal 5, evidence captured. No one noticed. They thought they'd won. Caesar smirked. Someone's about to miss her flight. Amaris met his gaze, unshaken. "Do you know who you're dealing with?" The clock ticked, and beneath their feet the ground began to tremble. 30 minutes earlier, the terminal had been ordinary. Morning light poured through the massive windows. Amaris had walked in with quiet confidence. Oversized cream sweater, dark jeans, canvas tote bag. She looked like 1,000 other passengers that morning, tired, purposeful, ready to get where she needed to go. She approached the first-class check-in counter with a slight smile. The airline employee behind the counter, Christine, according to her name tag, glanced up, then down at her screen, then back up. The smile Christine had been wearing for the white businessman who'd just walked away evaporated. "Can I help you?" Christine's voice was flat. "Yes, I'm checking in for Flight 447 to New York, first class." Amaris pulled out her phone, opened her boarding pass. Christine's eyes traveled from Amaris's face to her hair, the full, natural afro she'd worn with pride for 3 years, and back down to the screen. She typed slowly, as if each keystroke required careful consideration. "Do you have identification?" Amaris handed over her driver's license. Christine examined it like a detective scrutinizing forged documents, turning it over, holding it up to the light. The businessman behind Amaris shifted impatiently, but Christine seemed in no hurry. "And you purchased this ticket yourself?" "Yes." Christine leaned slightly to her left, catching the eye of another employee. She whispered something Amaris couldn't quite hear, but she caught the words "verify" and "suspicious." The young man glanced at Amaris, then at the screen, his eyebrows rising. Amaris watched all of this with practiced stillness. She noted Christine's full name on the badge. She noted the employee ID number. She noted the exact time. 7:47 a.m. Behind her, a white woman in yoga pants approached another counter. "Hi, checking in for the 8:15 to Phoenix." Her process took less than 90 seconds. No questions about who purchased the ticket. No examination of her ID. Just efficient, friendly service and a cheerful, "Have a great flight." Christine turned back to Amaris. "I'm going to need to call my supervisor. Please wait here." Amaris didn't argue. She stepped to the side, pulling out her phone. To an outside observer, she might have been answering work messages. In reality, she was documenting everything: timestamps, names, the questions asked, the ones not asked of the passenger behind her. This wasn't random bad luck. This was the airline she'd been monitoring for 18 months. 47 formal complaints about racial discrimination, quietly filed away, never resulting in any systemic change. She was here as Amaris Rosas, passenger. Not as CEO of Skyward Equity, the firm that owned 38% of this airline's stock. Not as the woman who sat on the Federal Aviation Administration's advisory committee. She was here to see what they would do when they thought no one important was watching. The minutes ticked by. 7 turned into 10. The crowd behind her grew larger, more impatient, and Amaris waited, her face calm, her heart beating steady as a war drum. Caesar Logan descended the escalator like a man used to being the final authority. Mid-40s, white, with the confidence that comes from 15 years of unchallenged decisions. His vest was pressed, his shoes polished, and his expression carried practiced irritation. Christine gestured toward Amaris as Caesar approached. "This is the passenger I mentioned. She's insisting the first-class ticket is hers, but what?" Amaris kept her voice level. Caesar's eyes swept over her, lingering on her hair. "Ma'am, we need to verify a few things. There's been an increase in fraudulent bookings. Can I see your boarding pass and ID again?" Amaris handed them over. Caesar examined both with theatrical slowness. He pulled out his phone, typed something, waited. looked up at her, looked back down. Can you remove your hat, please? I'm not wearing a hat. Your hair, it's quite voluminous. For security purposes, I need to make sure there's nothing concealed. The request hung in the air like smoke. Around them, other passengers slowed down. A black woman pulling a suitcase met Amaris's eyes for just a second. Recognition, sympathy, but kept walking. A teenager with his phone out had already started recording. You want to search my hair? Standard procedure for passengers with certain hairstyles, especially when there are other irregularities. What irregularities? Caesar glanced at Christine. The ticket was purchased less than 24 hours ago. First class. You're traveling alone. And frankly, he lowered his voice, but not enough. Your appearance doesn't quite match the typical demographic for this cabin class. There it was. Amaris felt the familiar heat rising in her chest, the anger she'd learned to compress into a tight ball. She counted to 3, exhaled slowly. I'd like to see your manager. I am the manager on duty. Before you board, we need additional screening. You can cooperate or you can forfeit your ticket. Your choice. Behind her, someone muttered, Just let them check. What's the big deal? Another voice, quieter. This is messed up. They didn't check that white lady. Amaris opened her bag slowly, placed it on the counter. Search my bag. Take everything out. Caesar nodded to Christine, who began removing items. Laptop, book, folder, pens, makeup bag, granola bar, phone charger. Every item was inspected. Nothing unusual. When the bag was empty, Caesar frowned. What do you do for a living? I work in investment management. Really? It wasn't a question, it was doubt. And where do you work? Why is that relevant to my flight? Just trying to understand if there's a legitimate business reason for this last-minute purchase, or if maybe someone else bought this ticket and you're borrowing it. The accusation was clear. Amaris could feel eyes on her now, dozens of them. The teenager's phone was definitely recording. An older white couple shook their heads and walked away. A middle-aged black man in a business suit stopped entirely, his jaw tight, watching. I purchased the ticket myself, with my own credit card. I have the receipt if you'd like to see it. That won't be necessary. Caesar straightened up. I'm going to have our security team take a look at you before you proceed. This way, please. He gestured toward a side area. Amaris didn't move. Am I being detained? You're being asked to cooperate with routine security. If you refuse, you'll be denied boarding. Amaris knew that escalating here, now, without the right witnesses, would only play into the narrative Caesar was already constructing. So she picked up her bag and followed him. As she walked, she pulled out her phone one more time. She opened the video camera, held it low at her side, and pressed record. Every step, every word from this point forward would be preserved. The trap was being set, but not the trap they thought. 2 security guards met them near Gate 47. One was a white man in his 30s, thick-necked and expressionless. The other was a black woman, late 20s, whose eyes flickered with something that might have been discomfort. Both wore standard blue uniforms, security stitched across their backs. Caesar pointed at Amaris. This passenger needs additional screening. Specifically, I need you to check her hair for concealed items. The black security guard, her name tag read Thompson, hesitated. Sir, is there a specific threat indicator, or... I don't need to explain my reasoning to you, Thompson. You follow protocol. Caesar's voice had an edge. We have the right to refuse service to passengers who don't comply, especially when the hairstyle could hide prohibited items. The male guard stepped forward, but Thompson hadn't moved. Around them, more people had stopped. Some were openly filming now. An older white woman tisked. Can't even follow simple rules, she muttered to her husband. Ma'am, the male guard said, I'm going to need you to stand still while we conduct the search. Amaris looked directly into the camera of the nearest phone, a young Latina woman positioned to capture everything. I'm complying fully with this request. I have no prohibited items, no weapons, but I want it on record that I'm being subjected to this procedure, while other passengers who don't look like me, are not. Ma'am, please don't make this harder. Caesar turned to the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for the delay. This is a standard security measure. Standard. The word echoed like a lie everyone could hear, but no one wanted to challenge. Thompson finally moved, slowly, reluctantly. She stepped behind Amaris, leaned close enough to whisper, "I'm sorry. I have kids. I can't lose this job." Then she reached out and touched Amaris's hair, gently at first, then with more pressure. "You're going to need to go deeper than that," Cesar instructed. "Really check it thoroughly." Thompson's hands moved through Amaris's hair, section by section. It was invasive, humiliating, a violation that had nothing to do with security. Amaris closed her eyes, felt the tears coming, and let them fall. She wouldn't hide the evidence of what this felt like. The male guard pulled out scissors from his belt, the large, industrial kind used for cutting open suspicious packages. "Sir, regulations say if we can't adequately inspect, we can remove the obstruction." Caesar nodded. "Do it." Thompson stepped back, her face pale. "Sir, I don't think— Did I ask what you think, Thompson?" The male guard grabbed a section of Amaris's hair, thick coils that had taken years to grow, to nurture, to accept as beautiful. The scissors opened with a metallic snick, then they closed. A clump of hair fell to the ground. Then another, and another. The crowd erupted. Some gasped, some turned away, but most kept filming. A voice from the back, "What the hell are you doing?" Another, "This is insane." But no one stepped forward. No one intervened. Caesar picked up one of the severed locks and held it up to Bradley, his colleague who'd just arrived. "Look at this, Brad. Could hide anything in here, right?" He laughed, short, ugly. "At least now we know she's clean." Bradley laughed too, clapping Caesar on the shoulder. "Free haircut. Should thank us, honestly." Amaris stood perfectly still, her scalp tingling where the scissors had cut too close, her vision blurring. Her hair lay scattered at her feet like casualties. She could hear phones buzzing, messages being sent, the video already spreading beyond this terminal. She pulled her own phone from her pocket with shaking hands. Her fingers moved across the screen. Code 5, LAX Terminal 5. Evidence captured, physical assault, witnesses present, requesting immediate federal intervention. The response came within seconds. Acknowledged. ETA 3 minutes. Stand by. Amaris looked up at Caesar. "These procedures seem to target a very specific demographic, but I wonder if you've ever stopped to ask yourself who you're actually dealing with." Caesar smirked. "I know exactly who I'm dealing with. Someone who tried to fly first class without what? Without being white? Without having straight hair? Without following the rules," Caesar shot back. He turned to the crowd, playing to them now. "This is what happens when people don't cooperate with basic security measures. We're just trying to keep everyone safe." "Safe from what?" The question came from an older black man in a suit. "From a woman with natural hair?" "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to step back," the male guard said. The man didn't move. "I'm a paying passenger. I have every right to watch you violate that woman's civil rights." The temperature in the terminal was rising, the air thick with tension, the kind of collective discomfort that comes when everyone knows something wrong is happening, but no one knows how to stop it. Amaris's phone buzzed again. "Team in position. Federal authority about to announce. Brace for impact." She looked at Caesar one last time. "You have about 3 minutes to apologize and make this right. After that, nothing will be in your hands anymore." Caesar laughed. "Are you threatening me? I've worked here 15 years. I have union protection, legal backing, full authority. You're just—" The PA system crackled to life, cutting him off. The voice that came through was calm, professional, carried weight. "Attention all airline staff. This is a Code 5 federal intervention. All operations in Terminal 5 are now under federal review by the Department of Transportation. All supervisory personnel are to stand by for immediate consultation. Repeat, Code 5 federal intervention in effect. Stand by." The terminal went silent. Even the ambient noise seemed to fade. The rolling of suitcases, the hum of conversations, the beeping of gate scanners, all of it dropping to near zero. Caesar's smile faltered. Bradley looked at him, confusion spreading across his face. Thompson took a step back, her hand on her radio, her eyes wide. And Amaris, standing in the center of it all with her hair scattered around her feet, allowed herself the smallest, most controlled smile. The earthquake had arrived. The first crack in Caesar's confidence appeared as a slight tightening around his mouth. He glanced at Bradley, then at the growing crowd. Code 5? That's just a drill. Happens all the time. Does it? Amaris tilted her head. Because I don't think you've ever actually experienced a Code 5 intervention before. Bradley stepped forward, trying to recover. At 52, he'd been in airline management longer than Caesar, and his confidence was built on decades of getting away with exactly this. Ma'am, I don't know who you think you are, but you need to understand something. We have full authority here. This is our terminal, our airline, our rules. Your airline? Amaris's voice was quiet, sharp. You're sure about that? 15 years I've worked here, Bradley continued, his voice rising. I've seen every type of passenger try every type of scam. Fake tickets, fraudulent bookings, people lying about their identity. We don't fall for it. We have protocols, legal teams. You want to threaten us? Go ahead. We'll be here long after you've moved on. At what? A young black woman near the front called out, her phone held high. At existing while black? At having natural hair? At gaming the system, Bradley shot back. And frankly, if people don't like our security measures, they're free to choose a different airline. The crowd was growing. 50 people had become 70, then 80. The terminal had effectively stopped functioning. A white woman in business attire pushed through. This is ridiculous. I fly this airline every week, and I've never been asked to have my hair searched. This is clearly... Ma'am, please step back, the male security guard said, but his voice lacked conviction. He could feel the shift happening. Someone had started a Twitter thread. Lax hair shaming was already trending. One post had 15,000 retweets in under 10 minutes. They're cutting a black woman's hair at LAX and laughing about it, saying it's security. This is 2025. How is this real? Caesar's phone started buzzing, then Bradley's. Both men glanced at their screens and went pale. Messages from everywhere, news outlets, corporate headquarters, union representatives. Gentlemen, Amaris said calmly, you're watching your careers end in real time. You just haven't realized it yet. Is that a threat? Caesar's voice had lost its swagger. It's a fact. Amaris pulled out her phone. You didn't search my hair for security reasons. You did it to humiliate me. Because you saw a black woman with natural hair in a first-class line and made assumptions about who I am and what I deserve. Bradley's face was turning red. You don't know what you're... Show me the written policy that requires hair searches for black passengers. I'll wait. Amaris lowered her phone, her eyes locked on Bradley's. Or maybe show me the statistics on how many white passengers you've subjected to this. How many blonde women have had their hair cut off in your terminal? The silence was deafening. Bradley opened his mouth, closed it, looked at Caesar for support. Caesar was staring at his phone, where messages were still flooding in. One caught his eye. Corporate counsel en route. Do not engage further with passenger until legal arrives. Too late, Thompson, the black security guard, had tears running down her face. She turned to Amaris. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. They told me I had to. I have 2 kids. I can't afford. You won't, Amaris said, her voice softening. I promise you. You were put in an impossible position. The people responsible aren't the ones following orders. They're the ones giving them. A Hispanic man in his 30s pushed forward. I'm an attorney. I saw the whole thing. That's assault. Intentional infliction of emotional distress. About 6 different torts and at least 3 federal violations. He looked at Caesar and Bradley. I hope you gentlemen have good lawyers. Bradley's composure finally cracked. This is insane. We were doing our jobs. You were enjoying yourselves, Amaris interrupted. I heard you laughing. Free haircut, you said. This wasn't about security. This was about putting me in my place. She turned to face the crowd directly. And that's exactly why I came here today. Not as a passenger hoping to fly without incident, but as someone who needed to see, firsthand, whether the complaints I'd been reviewing were accurate. Whether this airline's culture of discrimination was as systemic as 47 formal complaints in 18 months suggested. Caesar's phone fell from his hand. It clattered on the tile floor, impossibly loud. What did you just say? 47 complaints, all from black passengers, all describing variations of what just happened to me, and all of them filed away with no structural change. Amaris's voice was steady. I reviewed every single one, and I came here to see if anything had changed. Who are you? Bradley's voice was barely a whisper. Amaris's phone buzzed. Federal team entering terminal now. Ready when you are. She looked up at Caesar and Bradley. You have 30 seconds to apologize, to acknowledge what you did, to show even the smallest measure of accountability before everything changes. Caesar and Bradley looked at each other. Some silent communication passed between them. Pride, stubbornness, desperate hope. Bradley straightened his tie. Caesar crossed his arms. We have nothing to apologize for, Bradley said. We followed protocol. If you think you can sue us, go ahead, Caesar added. We have lawyers, insurance, 15 and 20 years of service. You have… What? A viral video? That'll be forgotten by tomorrow. Amaris nodded slowly. All right then, but just so we're clear, I tried to give you an exit. What happens next isn't cruelty, it's consequence. The elevator doors at the far end of the terminal opened with a soft chime. A team of 6 people stepped out, 5 in dark suits, 1 in a Department of Transportation uniform with brass that caught the light from 20 feet away. They moved through the crowd like a knife through water, passengers stepping aside instinctively. Leading them was a woman in her 40s, Hispanic, with sharp eyes and the kind of presence that made people straighten their spines. She walked directly to Amaris, and when she spoke, her voice carried across the entire terminal. Ms. Rosas, we received your Code 5 activation. Are you injured? Ms. Rosas. The name hung in the air like a revelation. Cesar's face went from red to white in the space of a single breath. Bradley actually took a step backward, and in the crowd, someone whispered, Wait, Rosas? As in Amaris Rosas? The CEO? The whisper spread like fire. Phones came out again. People searching the name, pulling up news articles, LinkedIn profiles, the pieces clicking together. Amaris Rosas, founder and CEO of Skyward Equity, net worth $847 million, owner of major stakes in 6 different airlines, including this one. The woman in the DOT uniform extended her hand to Amaris. When they shook, it was an acknowledgement between equals. Ms. Rosas, I'm Deputy Director Sarah Martinez from the Civil Aviation Authority. I apologize for the delay. She turned to face Cesar and Bradley, and the temperature in her voice dropped 20 degrees. Gentlemen, do either of you know who this woman is? Cesar couldn't speak. Bradley found his voice first, strangled, desperate. We were just… She didn't identify herself? She didn't need to. Martinez pulled out a leather folder, flipping it open to reveal credentials. This is Amaris Rosas, CEO of Skyward Equity, which owns 38% of the airline you work for. She's also a senior advisor to the Federal Aviation Administration's Advisory Committee on Civil Rights and Anti-Discrimination Policy. The words landed like artillery shells. Behind Martinez, the 5 suits were already spreading out, some taking statements from witnesses, others photographing the scattered hair, all of them moving with efficient precision. A passenger let out a low whistle. Someone else started clapping. The applause spread until half the terminal was clapping and the other half was filming. Thompson had collapsed into a nearby chair, her head in her hands, shoulders shaking. Amaris stood at the center of it all, and when she spoke, her voice carried the weight of every humiliation she'd endured, every time she'd been underestimated. But it also carried something else. The cold, calculated precision of someone who'd planned every move like a chess grandmaster. I didn't fly here today expecting dignity. I flew here to document what happens when systems fail, when complaints are ignored, when discrimination becomes so normalized that people like Mr. Logan and Mr. Bradley don't even recognize they're doing it. Martinez nodded to one of her team members, who stepped forward with a tablet. Ms. Rosas has been conducting a comprehensive review of discrimination complaints across all major carriers for 18 months. This airline received 47 formal complaints during that period, the highest rate per passenger of any carrier in the country. Not one resulted in employee discipline. Not one resulted in policy review. The pattern suggests embedded culture. Bradley found some reservoir of defiance. This is entrapment. She came here deliberately to test whether your airline's discrimination was as systematic as the data suggested? Amaris's voice was ice. Yes, I did, and it was. You weren't entrapped. You were given the opportunity to treat a black passenger with the same courtesy you show white passengers every single day. You failed. Spectacularly. She turned to Martinez. Initiate full Code 5 protocol. I want this terminal's operation suspended pending review. Every employee in supervisory positions interviewed. Training records, incident reports, internal communications for the last 2 years. And I want the CEO on the phone within the hour. Martinez nodded. Already in motion. The airline's operations in this terminal are suspended as of... She checked her watch. 8:47 a.m. The terminal erupted. Passengers who'd been delayed were cheering. Employees not involved were filming. Some crying, some shaking their heads. News crews were already showing up. Cameras and microphones appearing. Caesar looked like he might vomit. Wait, we're suspended? You can't just... We can, and we are. A young lawyer stepped forward, the same man from earlier. I'm filing a formal complaint with the California Bar against the airline's legal department for failure to respond to documented patterns, and I'm offering pro bono representation to any passenger who's experienced similar treatment. 3 hands went up immediately, then 5, then 8. Amaris walked over to Thompson, who was still sitting with her head in her hands. Ms. Thompson, you're not responsible for this. You were put in an impossible position. I'm so sorry, Thompson whispered. I know. Amaris pulled out a business card, placed it in Thompson's hand. When this settles, call me. Skyward Equity is always looking for people with integrity who got caught in bad systems. You'll have a job if you want one. Thompson stared at the card like it was a winning lottery ticket, tears flowing again, but this time from hope. Caesar was on his phone now, talking rapidly, probably union representation. Bradley had gone silent, his face the color of old paper. Martinez approached Amaris again, lowering her voice. The airline's CEO is on the line. I bet he is. Amaris took the offered phone. This is Rosas. The voice on the other end was frantic, apologetic, desperate. Ms. Rosas, I just learned what happened. I'm horrified. This doesn't represent our values, and I want you to know that we'll take immediate... Here's what's going to happen. Mr. Logan and Mr. Bradley will be terminated immediately, not suspended. Terminated. They'll be banned from working in any aviation-related field. Your head of HR will resign. Your VP of operations will resign. And you will implement a complete overhaul of your discrimination policies. Yes, absolutely. Whatever you... I'm not finished. You'll also establish a $10 million fund for anti-discrimination training. You'll create an independent review board with actual authority, and you'll publicly apologize, not with a press release, but with you, personally, on camera. Silence. Then, and if we do all this, then maybe Skyward Equity won't divest its entire stake and crash your stock price. Maybe we'll give you a chance to fix what you built. But understand this, I'm not doing you a favor. I'm giving your employees and passengers a chance at something better. She hung up without waiting for a response and handed the phone back to Martinez. Around them, the terminal was transforming. Passengers who'd been inconvenienced were now witnessing history. Employees who'd stayed silent for years were finally speaking up. The system that had protected people like Caesar and Bradley was collapsing. A reporter from CNN had gotten past security and was doing a live stand-up. Unprecedented federal intervention at LAX after a black CEO was subjected to what witnesses are calling a racially motivated assault. Amaris watched it all unfold with calm satisfaction. This wasn't revenge. This was justice. Measured, documented, and absolutely unavoidable. She looked down at her phone, at the Code 5 confirmation, at the scattered pieces of her hair still visible on the floor. Tomorrow, she'd begin the process of growing it back. Tomorrow, she'd meet with lawyers and advocates to turn this moment into lasting change. But today, right now, she allowed herself to feel vindication. The news hit within hours. Caesar and Bradley were escorted from the terminal by airport security, not federal agents, but their own colleagues, who now wouldn't meet their eyes as they walked them to the parking garage. Caesar's union representative tried to argue procedural violations, but the evidence was overwhelming. The videos had gone viral. The witnesses were credible. The victim was a federal advisor. There was no way to spin it. By evening, the airline's CEO appeared on national television, his tie slightly crooked, his eyes ringed with exhaustion. "I want to apologize directly to Ms. Rosas and to every passenger who has experienced discrimination from our airline. What happened at LAX was unconscionable, unacceptable, and a fundamental betrayal of everything we claim to value." The stock price dropped 11% in pre-market trading. Skyward Equity released a statement saying they were monitoring the situation closely. Every analyst knew what that meant. One more mistake and they'd bail, taking millions with them. Cesar Logan's termination was announced within 24 hours. Bradley followed 6 hours later. Christine, the front desk agent, was suspended. Not fired outright, but her career was effectively over. No airline would touch someone associated with the LAX hair incident. But the real consequence came from the legal system. The California Attorney General filed criminal charges against Cesar: battery, assault, civil rights violations, and hate crime enhancements. Bradley faced similar charges as an accomplice. Both were released on bail but ordered to surrender their passports. Cesar's lawyer tried the predictable defense. He was following protocol. He didn't mean to cause harm. He'd been trained to prioritize security. The prosecutor's response was devastating. "Your client didn't cut Ms. Rosas' hair for security reasons. He did it because he thought he could, because he'd done similar things to other passengers and never faced consequences." The plea deal came 3 weeks later. Cesar pled no contest to misdemeanor assault and civil rights violations. His sentence: 2 years probation, 500 hours of community service at organizations serving communities of color, mandatory anti-bias training, and $50,000 in restitution to Amaris, money she immediately donated to the Crown Coalition. Bradley's sentence was similar, though his included an additional requirement to speak at aviation industry conferences about the incident. "You will tell people what you did," the judge said. "You will explain how you justified it, and you will describe the harm you caused." Christine avoided criminal charges but lost her job and found herself unhireable. She sent Amaris a handwritten letter, 3 pages of apology and explanation. "I don't expect forgiveness," she wrote, "but I hope you know that what happened to you changed me." Amaris never responded. Some wounds don't require the victim to absolve the perpetrator. The airline itself faced dramatic transformation. Operations at LAX Terminal 5 were suspended for 30 days, an unprecedented shutdown that cost millions. During that time, every supervisory employee underwent intensive retraining. Policies were rewritten. An independent ombudsman position was created to review discrimination claims. Thompson, the security guard forced to cut Amaris's hair, took the job offer from Skyward Equity. 6 months later, she was director of security culture, leading training programs. "I did something terrible," she said in an interview, "but Ms. Rosas gave me a chance to make sure no one else is ever put in that position again." The cultural shift rippled beyond one airline. Within 6 months, Delta, United, and American Airlines all announced comprehensive reviews of their discrimination systems. 3 other airlines faced Department of Transportation investigations after passengers came forward with similar stories. But the most significant change came from Congress. The Crown Act, which had been languishing in committee for 2 years, suddenly found new momentum. The LAX incident became Exhibit A in hearings. Representatives who'd been lukewarm rushed to co-sponsor. The bill passed both houses within 4 months. Under the new federal law, discrimination based on natural hairstyles was explicitly illegal in all public accommodations. Violations carried federal penalties, and victims had clear legal recourse. Amaris stood in the Rose Garden when the president signed it, her natural hair grown back fuller and more beautiful than before, a physical reminder that what they'd tried to take had only grown back stronger. The president quoted her, "Ms. Rosas demonstrated extraordinary courage. This law exists because she refused to be silent." The hashtag #LAX hair shaming became a movement. Black women across the country shared their own stories, being sent home from work, expelled from school, denied job opportunities because their natural hair was deemed unprofessional. The incident had opened a door, and on the other side was a flood of testimony. Cesar Logan's name became synonymous with casual cruelty. Bradley became a case study in how systems protect bad actors. But Amaris Rosas became something else, a symbol of strategic resistance. of turning victimhood into power, of refusing to let injustice hide in the shadows. The airline never fully recovered its reputation. Bookings from Black passengers remained 30% below pre-incident levels even a year later. Corporate clients quietly shifted contracts to competitors. The brand was permanently stained. But some things did change. Terminal 5 reopened with a new mandate. Every employee completed monthly anti-discrimination training. Anonymous complaint hotlines were established, and on the wall near Gate 47, a plaque was installed. Dignity is not negotiable. Justice is not optional. Amaris never flew that airline again, but she didn't need to. The work was done, the system was changed, and the message was clear. Underestimate people at your own peril. 2 months after the incident, Amaris stood at a podium in the Washington Hilton, facing 800 people. Airline executives, federal regulators, civil rights advocates, journalists. The National Aviation Conference had invited her to keynote, and the room was packed beyond capacity. She looked different now. Her hair had grown back in tight, healthy coils, styled in a way that announced she was reclaiming what had been taken. She wore a navy suit, minimal jewelry, understated power. When she stepped to the microphone, the room fell silent. "I didn't do this for revenge," she began. "Revenge is personal. What happened at LAX, that's systematic. And systematic problems require systematic solutions." She let the words settle. "Every day, millions of people who look like me walk through airports wondering if today will be the day they're singled out, wondering if their natural hair will be deemed suspicious. That uncertainty, that constant low-level threat assessment, that's the real cost of discrimination, not just the dramatic incidents that make the news, but the thousands of microaggressions that never get filmed, never get reported." A woman in the third row nodded, wiping her eyes. "I had the privilege, and yes, it is a privilege, to document what happened to me. I had resources, connections, and the knowledge of exactly which levers to pull, but most people don't have that. Most people suffer the humiliation, swallow the anger, and move on because they don't see any other option." She paused, looking out at the sea of faces. "That's what we have to change. We have to build systems where dignity isn't something you fight for. It's the default." She clicked to the next slide, showing statistics. The numbers told a story that was impossible to deny. These aren't accidents. These are choices. Cultural choices about who deserves benefit of the doubt. Policy choices about what complaints get taken seriously. Every one of these numbers represents a decision someone made. A hand went up. A white man in his 50s. Airline executive by the look of him. "What would you say to people who argue that you went into that situation looking for a problem?" Amaris didn't hesitate. "I would say that if walking into an airport as a black woman with natural hair constitutes looking for a problem, then the problem isn't me. It's the airport. I bought a ticket. I went through security. I tried to board a plane. The fact that those actions resulted in my hair being forcibly cut should tell you everything." The executive nodded slowly. "But I'll be honest with you," Amaris continued, her voice softening. "I did go there expecting discrimination because I'd reviewed 47 complaints describing exactly what happened to me. I went there hoping I was wrong. I wanted to be proven wrong. The fact that I wasn't, that's not vindication. That's tragedy." She clicked to another slide, showing a photo of Thompson in her Skyward Equity uniform. "This is Officer Thompson. She was ordered to cut my hair. She was sobbing while she did it because she knew it was wrong, but she had 2 kids to feed and believed she had no choice. That's what broken systems do. They force good people to do bad things." The room was absolutely silent. "Officer Thompson works for me now, not because I'm trying to absolve her, she'll carry the weight for the rest of her life, but because she represents something important, the difference between someone who made a mistake within a broken system and someone who built that broken system. Officer Thompson deserves a second chance. Caesar, Logan, and Bradley don't." She paused. "Justice isn't about punishing everyone equally. It's about understanding context, accountability, and who had the power to make different choices." Amaris advanced to her final slide, showing a quote from James Baldwin. "Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. I faced what happened to me by refusing to hide it, by documenting it, making it public, forcing people to witness what they'd rather ignore. That's uncomfortable, that's confrontational, but it's necessary, because the alternative, staying silent, that doesn't protect anyone. She gripped the podium. So here's what I'm asking. Face it. Face the bias in your hiring practices. Face the disparities in how you treat passengers. Face the complaints you've been filing away. Face the uncomfortable truth that your institutions have been built on assumptions about who matters. And then change it. Not with performative statements, but with structural reform. Independent oversight. Transparent reporting. Real consequences. Training that actually changes behavior. Amaris's voice softened. I don't want anyone else to go through what I went through. But more than that, I don't want anyone to have to be a CEO or a federal advisor to demand basic dignity. The person cleaning your terminals deserves the same respect as the person sitting in first class. That's not radical. It's the bare minimum of a civilized society. She stepped back, preparing to conclude. What happened at LAX wasn't special. It wasn't unique. It was just visible. There are hundreds of airports, thousands of terminals, millions of interactions where the same dynamics play out every day. The only difference is that I had the tools to fight back. So now I'm sharing those tools. I'm sharing the playbook. The audience began to applaud, but Amaris held up a hand. One last thing. People keep asking me if I forgive Cesar Logan, and my answer is this. Forgiveness is personal, and I'm not interested in performing it for public consumption. My goal was never to destroy him. It was to dismantle the system that created him and protected him. He was a symptom. The disease was the culture. So no, I'm not consumed by anger, but I'm also not at peace. Peace comes when the work is done, when the systems are changed, when the next young black woman boarding a plane doesn't have to wonder if she'll make it through without incident. We're not there yet, but we're closer than we were, and that's something. The applause this time was thunderous, people rising to their feet, the ovation lasting nearly 3 minutes, but Amaris didn't bask in it. She simply nodded once, gathered her notes, and walked off stage. Because justice wasn't a destination, it was a process, and the process had only just begun. 3 weeks later, Amaris sat down for an interview with Oprah. The conversation had ranged across her career, her philosophy, the incident. But it was the final question that became the clip everyone shared. What do you want people to take away from what happened? Amaris leaned forward. I want them to know they have more power than they think. If you witness discrimination, don't look away. Pull out your phone, record it, share it, amplify the victim's voice. The reason the LAX incident ended the way it did wasn't just because of who I am. It was because dozens of people documented what was happening. And if you're the person experiencing it, Oprah asked, know your rights, document everything, find your community, and understand that staying silent doesn't protect you. It just protects the people causing harm. You have every right to take up space, to demand dignity. Oprah nodded. And if you're someone with power, Amaris's smile was sharp, then you have no excuse. You have the resources, the authority, the platform to make change. Use it. Audit your systems. Listen to the people telling you something's wrong. Because if you don't, eventually someone like me will walk through your doors and you'll discover that all that power you thought you had was built on a foundation that can collapse in minutes. The interview ended with Amaris looking directly into the camera. Here's my challenge. The next time you see someone being treated unfairly, in an airport, a store, a workplace, ask yourself what you're going to do about it. Are you going to be a bystander who walks away? Or are you going to be the person who speaks up, who intervenes, who refuses to let injustice happen in front of you? Because systems only change when enough people decide they're not acceptable, power only shifts when enough people stop being intimidated by it, and justice only happens when enough people demand it. She paused, and the hint of a smile played at her mouth. Cesar Logan and Bradley thought they had all the power in that terminal. They thought they could humiliate me and face no consequences because that's what they'd always done before. They thought I was just another black woman they could push around. They didn't know who they were dealing with. They didn't know I'd spent 18 months documenting their airline's discrimination. They didn't know I had federal authority on speed dial. They didn't know I owned 38% of their company. They made assumptions based on what I looked like, and those assumptions destroyed their careers. Amaris's voice lowered, becoming almost intimate. So here's what I want everyone to remember. Never assume you know someone's power based on how they look. That person you're dismissing, underestimating, discriminating against, they might be exactly the person who has the tools to dismantle everything you've built. They cut my hair thinking they were cutting me down, but they didn't realize. She reached up and touched her regrown afro, that my roots run deeper than they could ever imagine. You can't cut down what grows from the inside. The camera held on her face for a long moment. It wasn't just her story anymore. It was theirs. Every person who'd ever been underestimated, discriminated against, told they didn't belong. Every person who'd swallowed their dignity to get through a day. Every person who'd wondered if fighting back was worth the cost. Amaris had shown them it was. The screen faded to black, and across it appeared the quote that would become the rallying cry, "Your crown has been bought and paid for. All you must do is put it on your head." James Baldwin. Below it, share your story. Document discrimination. Demand change. Within days, 3 more states passed Crown Act legislation. Within weeks, the movement had spread internationally. And in airports across America, Black women walked through terminals with their natural hair styled exactly as they wanted it, knowing that if anyone tried to discriminate against them, an army of witnesses with cameras would be ready to document it, knowing that the law was finally on their side, knowing that someone had fought this battle and won, which meant they could too. Amaris Rosas had turned her humiliation into revolution. She'd transformed cruelty into catalyst, and in doing so, she'd proven something essential about power. It doesn't just come from position or wealth or connections. It comes from refusing to accept that things can't change. It comes from standing up even when you're standing alone. It comes from believing that your dignity matters enough to fight for. They'd tried to cut her down. Instead, they'd helped her rise. And she wasn't done rising yet.